Hello, guys. I just wanted to let you know that we are about to get started. Get your questions ready for our topic today, which is portraiture. Some tips on getting better portraits after all this craziness is through. So if you could just leave us a note in the comments, let us know where you're joining from. We want to know where this live stream, how far it is reaching. You know, we're putting a lot of time and effort into this, and we want to see how far we can make these things go. So if you can, in the comments, whether you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, or you're on our website, please do me a huge favor and type in the comments so that way I know you can hear me. I want to make sure that the audio and everything is good to go. If anybody can identify what this adorable dog is as well, I think that would be super helpful for the rest of us. Inquiring minds would like to know, what kind of adorable dog is this? And also let me know if you can hear the elevator music. I tried something new to pipe that audio in, so I kind of want to know if that is getting out there. Looks like we have 7 people connected. If you could do me a huge favor and go ahead and put in the comments where you are joining us from. Looks like our first question. Hello from Brunswick. I want to know why it's snowing. It was just an adorable countdown that I found of a dog, and I love dogs. So that's why I picked the snowing one. Thinking back to like pre-coronavirus times when we had that little bit of snow this winter and we could go out and photograph it. That's what I'm thinking about. Also, I wanted to let you know, if you're joining us from Facebook, you'll see a link in this post that references StreamYard. If you click on that, we can see who you are. Right now, you know, we're seeing Facebook user come through, so we want to know who you are. We want to know, again, where this is reaching to. So if you could, if you're just joining us for the first time, please click on that link so that way we know who you are. So that way it'll come up and have your name on there. Or if you don't want that, if you want total anonymity, oh man, it's too early for these big words. If you want to be anonymous, I understand. We are under 90 seconds until we get started, guys. Thanks for staying with us. We're going to be talking about portraiture today. Fun topic from a really good, great, amazing, I was going to say a good friend, amazing portrait artist. Get your questions ready. You know, if this is something that you've not gotten into portraiture before, this is new to you, we want to make sure that we are answering those questions. I just want to point out that I've never worked from home on the 1st, and apparently we have a tornado siren that goes off noon on the 1st, so we might have to delay this a little bit. Let me close some doors so you guys don't hear that crazy siren that is going up. Time is up. We are getting ready to kick off today's live stream. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And again, I do apologize if that siren, if you can hear that siren. Apparently we do a test of our system, which, I mean, I knew we do tests, but I've never worked from home on the first of the month, I don't think. So welcome, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We are getting ready to kick off with an awesome topic. I want to know what have you guys been shooting? So we've talked about a lot of topics over the last couple weeks. We've talked about macro. We've talked about some video stuff. We've talked about birding. We've had guests on about audio. I want to know what you guys are doing. You know, your job is to inspire me. My job is to train and inspire you and bring some awesome guests like we have the guest, a really close friend of mine today. So let me know in the comments, what are you guys shooting? What are you guys up to? Oh, we cannot hear it. Thank you, Brian. You cannot hear the siren, so that helps me. Thank you guys for letting me know. Hello, Pam. Pam, I think she joins every day, and thank you so much, Pam, for joining us. Hello from Southern Ohio, or hello to Southern Ohio from Northern Ohio. And actually, our speaker today is from Southern Ohio, so maybe you know him. I don't know. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to first kick off with just a few housekeeping items. These are the things I talk about every single day. My friends over at the store will be monitoring the chat. So if you do have questions that we don't see, we have a whole team that's monitoring this stuff to answer any technical questions that you have. Also, you know, I'll pause the live stream and say, hey, Bob, let's talk about this. This is a question that we had come in that people want to know. And we'll just pause and we'll talk about that question. So you can put those questions in the chat and we'll be sure to answer those for you. Number two, we are still open at the store. So from 1 to 5, every day but Sunday, you can stop by and pick up things that you need, especially like this live stream. I was talking to Bob before we kicked off, and he was like, hey, I was going to do this, but I didn't have the, you know, the stuff, and, you know, no stores are open. Same thing with our guests for tomorrow. I was doing a little pre-show kind of testing things. And he's like, I thought I would be able to get this cable, but nothing's open. So if you do need something, please let us know in the comments. Anyway, just call us, smoke signals, whatever. And we do have curbside pickup. So you just have to pull up. It might look sketchy, but you just pull up and pop your trunk and we'll put your goods in there for you. So that way we can keep you safe and we can keep our staff safe. But any questions that you have, if you need anything, please let us know. Also, if there's a topic that you want us to cover on the live stream, that would be super duper helpful. I have enough ideas to go for like the next year. So, you know, I can keep us churning along. I can keep throwing wood in that fire. But if there's something that you want to know, please let me know, because I want to help solve your problems. I want to keep you inspired. I want you to keep coming back so we can learn together. You are my outside voice. Like after today, like I've been going into the store, but after today's my last day that I'm probably going to go there, so I can focus more on this content, that I can focus more on our online community. So I need you guys. I need you guys to come join me. You are my connection to the outside world. So what is our goal? Our goal is to do this every day at noon with some bonus episodes kind of sprinkled in between. So hopefully we'll see you back here tomorrow as well. A little fireside chat action. So a note about the PPA. I actually talked to them yesterday, and it sounds like they are extending this through April, but keep an eye on their website. You know, that might not be out there yet. I don't know. But they are putting out all their online content for free. So, you know, obviously you're joining this live stream, so you want to learn something. You want to do better. You want to get more information. PPA is a great way to do that. They're a phenomenal organization that I've been tied into for many years, almost my entire professional career. So moving on from there, what are our goals for today? So let me go ahead and throw this up on the screen. Our goals today are to pull you away from the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, the doubt that is going on right now. And even if it's just for a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, just kind of pull you away from that and remind you that you have this awesome, awesome hobby or business called photography. And I don't want you guys to lose sight of that. I think that there's so much power in art, in photography in general, that it would be such a disservice if you stopped showing up, for photography, if you put this hobby to the side, just because we are coming in, and having to stay inside, it doesn't mean that our creativity has to be done or we have to be done with it. So again, my goal is to pull you away from that. Also, my goal is to keep you motivated. I want you to try something new. I want you to step outside of your comfort zone so that way you can try something new. I've already talked to people that said, hey, that macro stuff that you do, this is how I'm going to apply that to my business. And they're going to kind of open that up as a new vertical, where they can start making money once this thing's over. You have the time now. You could set up a whole business right now because you have the time to focus on it. So I urge you to take these little bits and pieces of information and act on them. The key is to act. I don't want you just to sit here and kind of binge watch live streams. That doesn't help. I want you to have some action. I want you to get inspired. I want you to build something great. And finally, to help you discover something new, like I said, that you haven't really looked at before. So maybe you haven't looked at portraits. Maybe you haven't done portraiture. You've been too scared to talk to people. Whatever that is, maybe this is that inspiration, that push that you need to get you over that hump to get started into starting even a portraiture business. As always, any resources that you need, so like the slides and stuff like that, any information, just shoot me an email, social@thepixelconnection.com, and I'll be sure to get you any information that you need. So let's go ahead and get started. So my friend here has done portraiture for a very long time. Welcome, 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 Mr. Sims. How are you doing today?
I am good. I want to thank you and the Pixel Connection for inviting me to participate in these live stream events. I'm super excited about it, and hopefully we can do more in the future.
Absolutely. So I'm going to get this one out of the way right now. So we had a Facebook user ask us, and I already know the answer to this. But before anybody else asks, when is the 70 to 180 2.8 for Sony coming?
It is close. That's all I can say. It is close. I have received numerous questions, obviously regarding in the context of the pandemic. I've received questions. Is it still coming? Is it delayed? All I can say at this moment is it's very close, and just be watching social media. Look at the Tamron site and other various sites, and you will see information shortly. That's all I can say. And I can say this. It will be an amazing lens for those who were able to purchase the 28 to 75. They know how hot that lens was and how good it was review-wise. You will see the same thing, no doubt, with the 70 to 180.
Awesome. And then do we have a price point on that? Do we know anything about that yet?
Not officially yet, but you will see that when it is released or announced. And that is coming, like I said, very shortly.
Hopefully soon. Cool. And then just a couple other things saying, what's up, TJ? Just want to say hello to them. They're like my groupies that join us. So hello, Jim Summers. And then hello, our friend over at Tech Gear Talk. Thank you so much for joining today. So, and a Facebook user says thank you. So I don't have Facebook open, so I don't know who the Facebook user is. But he says thank you. He or she says thank you. So tell us a little bit about, what we're going to talk about today. So, we're going to talk about portraits. I'm going to go ahead and add your screen in here. So tell us a little bit about you and what we're going to talk about today.
All right, thanks. Well, my name is Bob Sims. I am Tamron Rep and professional photographer. I've been a photographer for as long as I can remember. I started photography, I'd say, in a more serious manner my sophomore year of high school. And beyond that, or after that, rather, I just really got into it. And I've probably photographed, I have no idea, maybe 200 plus weddings, more seniors and models than I can remember. And so that's my experience. And so it's great being, working for Tamron because of their amazing lenses that I have just a whole array to use. It's like a kid in a candy store every time I open up my demo trunk. But so it's a good fit. But I am the sales rep for Ohio and Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. So I travel around. I'm the sales rep, and then also I do a lot of workshops, mainly portrait, because that is my my wheelhouse. Though, like you mentioned earlier, macro, it's something I'd love to learn more about. But portraiture is pretty much what I do. And what we are going to be looking at today is just 3 tips, basically. I think 3 is all I'm going to do. We have time for of just some portrait tips. And one of the things that I say when I teach live in person is I always have this disclaimer that I do not know everyone's expertise. I don't know what you're good at, what you're not good at in regard to photography and portrait photography. And so sometimes I might talk over you, sometimes I might talk under you, but my goal is to talk at you. And so like TJ had shared, if you have any questions, please, by all means, this is what we're doing this for. Go ahead and share those questions. And one other note is that macro photography and some other types genres of photography, we can do right now. Portrait photography, because of this pandemic and all of the guidelines and restrictions, it is difficult unless you photograph those in your own home. And so I advise you, if you're able to do that and you're quarantined with some family members, this is a fantastic time to practice some portrait skills.
Absolutely. I love it. So let's go ahead and get into the presentation and these 3 tips. If you could, everybody, just put your comments and your questions in the chat so that way we can make sure that we hit those as we go. So let's go ahead and get started, man.
All right. So as you see there I am, Bob Sims, Tamron Rep. My social media handles are there. If you do not already follow me, I would appreciate if you would do that. My Instagram is @TamronBob, one word. There's one out there floating with an underscore Bob. That is not me. So @TamronBob, one word. And then for Facebook, it's Tamron Eastern Central. And you see the title is Post-Apocalypse Portrait Tips. Now that is a little tongue in cheek. And so here, if you would, here's our next slide is, Tamron is taking this extremely serious. If you see there, the COVID pandemic that we're all facing, it's serious. So Tamron wants you, I want you, TJ and Pixel Connection, we all want you to be sure to take every precaution and utilize social distancing in conjunction with your state's guidelines. And then we appreciate your patience as we deal with this. Tamron is committed to continuing to manufacture and bring you the best lenses with the best optical quality in the industry. And we're going to continue to do that. But obviously, Tamron, we care about your families and your safety. So be sure to, like I said, adhere to your state's guidelines, practice good, safe social distancing. And one day we're going to be able to get out there and photograph again. So that's my disclaimer. That's my disclaimer. So
love it. Love it.
So these are just some of the lenses that I might mention here. My favorites, you'll see there, the 85-1.8. It is no doubt one of the best 85-1.8s on the market. It has our vibration compensation. That's our image stabilization, 24-70 G2, and then the 70-200 G2. Without a doubt, my favorite of all of our lenses for portraiture, non-mirrorless lenses. Here we go. And so your primary responsibility is to make your subject look good. And so if you are photographing your family, maybe it's your children or your wife or husband or your partner, whatever you're doing, your primary responsibility is to make your subject look good. And that is a great responsibility to do, but it's exciting for me. Every time that I would photograph a senior or a model or a bride, my goal was to make sure that I had everything I could in my wheelhouse to make them look as good as they could. And that's your responsibility. So the number one tip is that subtle changes can make a big difference. Oftentimes, and this is going to be hard for me to say because I'm a sales rep, and it's not about the gear sometimes. It's very subtle. It's with photography. It is an art, and it is making these subtle changes to poses and angles that can make a big difference. Obviously, you need good fast glass and good optical quality, but above that, you really need a good technique. And so here is an example of a model that I photographed. And just so you know, I use a lot of artificial light with my setup. And so this is, I'm using, if you see in the model's eyes on the camera right, there's going to be an octabox. Camera left is a strip box. There's also a Westcott eye lighter underneath, lighting her from the bottom. And then there is a speed light in the back as a backlight. So this is a deer in the headlights kind of a look, right? Not really the best portrait that I could have taken. But we're going to see what some subtle changes can do to this model. And so here we have the second shot. And so let's look at the first shot again. And then this is the second shot. And then we're going to do one more advance here. And now you can just see the difference. It looks like she literally lost weight. This is not a big girl anyway, or a bigger frame. But if you can look and see, Her nose looks like she had a nose job. Her face looks narrower, right? It's not as round. And as if you can see here, what I did is I had her lower her nose. I shot above eye level just a little bit. And then I zoomed out about 4 or 5 millimeters. So you can see the top of her head. And I say lower nose because I found that if you tell your model, your subject, the senior, whomever you're shooting, if you tell them to lower their chin, a lot of times you'll get that double chin because it kind of go like one of these things, you know. But I literally say, just bring your nose down. And oftentimes they'll look at you kind of confused. But if you just say, bring your nose down, and they kind of go like this, and it's much easier to direct your subject that way. And if you see here, the shot on the right is much better than the shot on the left. So it didn't do much. No equipment changed. I've showed this in my portrait workshops, and I've had numerous photographers tell me or ask me if I changed the light. Did I do this? Did I do that? Did I do a different aperture? Everything is identical except for lowered her nose, shot above eye level, and then zoomed out. All right, so here we have, this is on the left here. This is a very distorted look of this young lady. And on the right, it's not distorted. And this is shot with the Tamron 35-150 f2.8-4. I think this is a gem of a portrait lens, especially if you are on a budget and say maybe you want the 70-200 2.8 G2, and maybe it's a little out of your budget at the moment. The 35-150 is perfect, and especially if you are shooting APS-C and you're still shooting traditional DSLR, the 35-150, it's phenomenal for portraits. As you can see here, I'm zoomed all the way out or wide rather, at 35 on the left, and you can see her face is very distorted. And if you recall, what I said earlier is your job as a photographer is to make your subject look good. I don't know any not man or woman that wants their head to look distorted. Now, if you're going for this certain look for like a social media or something like that, I could see it more artistic, but this is not what she was wanting, obviously. So what did I do? So if you look at the image on the right, all I did, I was still shooting at 35 millimeters. All I did is just take a step back, 2 or 3 steps back, and you notice that her head looks normal. It's not, you know, stretched out and distorted. I still wouldn't shoot this at 35, but this was just for descriptive purposes here. I'm doing this, and now we look. Now this is at 98. Okay, so this is a much more traditional portrait length. If you're not familiar, the classic portrait length is 85. A lot of photography textbooks will tell you that it's 85 up to 135. So anything in that range is acceptable for a head and shoulder type portrait. This is much more pleasing. At 98 right here, we see that her head looks very normal, as it should be. And then if we do the comparison here, now we're going to see a huge difference. We have the image on the left is at 35. And then the one on the right is at 98 millimeters. And you see the difference here. Much more pleasing. And if you notice too, even the background, the bokeh is nice. With the 2.8-4, obviously this was shot at f4 because I was at 98. But you still have nice pleasing bokeh. And here is the 35-150 f2.84, if you're not familiar with it. And now posing. Posing is huge.
Real quick, is that a we had a couple questions come in, and I think I know the answer.
Sure.
Number one is, do you use natural light?
Okay. I use primarily, I do not use natural light. I use both, but I almost always use speed lights. And I use a lot of different products, any wide range of light modifiers. Typically, it's like a Westcott Rapid Box is my go-to, but you could use Magma. You could use a lot of different other brands. I always balance my light with the ambient light because I love the catch light.
Perfect. Another question we have, another point, bring your nose down is a great tip. So thank you, Jim Summers. Appreciate that.
Yes.
Question I have is this lens, this 35 to 150, who is it available for? Is it a crop? Is it a full frame lens?
All right. So this is for Canon and also for Canon and Nikon. And it is it can use on an APS-C or a full frame. It's not a mirrorless lens.
Okay.
And,
awesome.
And like I said, it is a phenomenal lens for portraiture on a budget. It's super sharp. I was blown away, and obviously I'm the rep, so of course I'm going to say this, but I was leery when I first, I'll be honest, I was a little leery, and I'm like, okay, let's see how this is. And I love the 70 to 200 G2. And then once I started shooting with this, it was my go-to lens for a lot of my portraits that I do, for my classes and stuff. And so it's a phenomenal lens. It's super sharp. I would check it out when you have that opportunity to check it out.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all the questions so far. Let's move on. Perfect.
So this is the same model that I was using in the previous one. And so you see, obviously, she wasn't quite ready. If you see on the image on the left there, she didn't have her eyes open, but I'm just showing you that's how she was going to set. And so watch out for distractions in the background. And then you see her shoulders are kind of, she's slumped over, and that leads to slouching. And posing makes a difference. So if you see the image on the right, interestingly, that little kid that's right here, this little kid in the background, he was still in the image, but he was, I just had it, he was still playing. And when you're out shooting in a public area, this is a park that's very close to my house, and I live in Cincinnati, it's real close to my house. So what I did is, instead of asking this little boy to stop playing, and he was like crouching down anyway, I just lowered myself and I shot up at the model. Now, be careful. Not everyone is, not every model or subject that you shoot, shooting up from down below and up below their eyes. It's not advisable depending on their build. If they are a bigger frame person, it just might, if maybe their face is maybe bigger than others, then I wouldn't do that. It worked out well for her. And then have your subject arch their back, and then roll their shoulders back. This is the number one thing when I'm photographing females is I say, imagine that someone had like a needle or a pen, and they poked you like in your lower back. What would you do? And 90% of the time, the subject, they'll kind of lean back like this, and that's exactly what you want. Also, too, if you can say roll your shoulders back, that helps, because once they roll their shoulders back, they naturally will arch a little bit. And this is something that I'll add here is, once this pandemic is settling down, and who knows when that's going to be, and we're out there photographing again, I do think things will change. I've always been a hands-off portrait photographer. I think for your safety and the safety of the subject, I think you should never touch the model, the subject, the senior. You just shouldn't do that. I always have, like, for a senior, high school senior, I have to have a parent there, and they touch hair, they do all that. But I think now going forward, after this pandemic subsides, I think that's even more important. Because we should still, social distancing should be something that we should do, and you should be able to shoot portraits and not be up in someone's bubble. You don't want to be in their grill. So, go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to do a quick test or a quick poll of the audience. How many people while he was saying that pin thing did one of these where you're kind of doing what he did? I'm so glad this wasn't on, because as he's telling me that, I'm testing it, and then he said the poke thing. So I want to take a poll. How many people did the same? So it was just me. Oh, but I want to know in the comments. Let me know in the comments how many people did the same thing that I did. Oh, we got a hand raised from a Facebook user. Yep.
Nice.
Did that. Jim Summers. Yep. Guilty. So let's go ahead and move on. I just want to do that quick poll.
You got it. All right. Number 2, hands. What do you do with them, or what do you do with them? So hands is something that that when it comes to posing, a lot of times, what do you do with the hands? And so here we'll show you a couple things here. This is just a senior that I photographed here, and I specifically didn't tell her to do anything with her hands. These are just some portraits that I shot with her hands in them. The thing is, what you want to do is, if you see the image on your left there, that is acceptable. Her hand is to the side. Whenever a hand is by a face, you really want to make sure that it's not broad. You want to make sure that it's like this and not like that, because as you turn your hands and they widen, it's going to make their hand look very big next to their face. So it's much more pleasing if you keep it like this versus like this. Now the image on the right there, I broke the rule a little bit. You see the broad side of her hand. It's okay. It works. I would have still rather her twisted just a little bit. But once again, you really don't want to overpose. But because it wasn't next to her face, it's not as big of a deal, and it still works. A little backstory on this young lady. She was actually the valedictorian of her high school, and she was a gymnast, and she was really she accentuates, she wanted her muscles accentuated. I mean, she joked around about it, and she talked about like how in shape she was and stuff. And so I purposefully I did a series of photographs with her hat forward. And then in my mind, I said, I really want to accentuate like her biceps, because she's just so built and she's a gymnast and everything. But what I didn't want to do is I did not want to say, hey, flex for me, because then you turn into that creepy photographer. And this is something I always tell my workshop attendees. One of your goals as a photographer is don't be the creepy photographer. Okay. And so the last thing I want to do is tell a high school girl to flex for me. So what I did is I tried, what's that?
I just turned my mic back on because I said absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't want to be the creepy guy.
That's right. You don't want to be the creepy guy or creepy girl. So I said, I kept in my mind thinking like, what can I do? And so I thought this was the best thing I could do. Just flip her hat back, and I thought it would be enough to where it would accentuate like your muscles. And the crazy thing is, her mom is a school teacher, and then when she talked to me once I gave these images to her, she said, oh, she just, her daughter loves the images, and she said, oh, she loves the picture with her hat back. She said, oh my gosh, Mom, I look ripped. And so, that was perfect, because that is what that's, as a photographer, you want to hear comments like that, especially a high school senior photographer. You want that. You want to get stuff that poses and stuff that the seniors like. So Absolutely. that worked out.
And I think the hands have to do something. I mean, that's what, you can see both of these, in both of these images, the hand on the right, even though it is kind of that broadside, she's playing with her hair. There's a reason for it to be there, I see a lot of really artistic and cool shots, but one thing that never really worked with my seniors was kind of doing the hand on the face and kind of bringing it in. That works for more art and a more different style, but for seniors, like pulling hair through or having a guy like pull his hair back, the hands are doing something, and the hands are the hardest thing to pose. I mean, and
exactly. I agree. And because you said that, we're going to do a couple more hand shots right to the face. Here we go. And, here are a couple ones where, you just have to be careful. So the image on the left, that hand in the palm, I do this at all my workshops. If you want a good go-to pose, have your model put, their left hand up, take their right hand up, and you just place your right hand right here, put it by their face. And then typically what I do is I have them do that, and then you start to shoot, and then you can have them bring it down around the wrist and all the way down to the forearm, and as they lower both hands, you can get you might have maybe 1 or 2 shots in there that work out well. It looks very natural. And then the one on the right is, another example of hands of the face, but you want to make sure that they're twisted so they're not huge. And then your fingers whenever the fingers actually touch the face, they should lightly touch, not hard, not depress in there, because then you're going to see it, and it's not going to look right.
This was more of a model shoot, correct?
Both of these. Both of these were I would be more of a typical of a model shoot. So and you have to be careful when you're doing seniors. Some of this might work, some of it might not work. And then notice here I did switch to the 85-1/8, which I just love that lens. And then here is definitely a model shot, and this is more unconventional. And this is something where the model was just kind of moving around, touching her face, and some things worked. I like these. The one on the right with her finger out, it bothered me for a while, but it for the mood, it really worked for me. And what's unique about these were both shot with available light because they're window light. And so it's a real nice artistic look. And with the tattoos and everything. And then sometimes too, if you're photographing either a guy or girl who has tattoos on their arms or something, most times when I've photographed those with tattoos, they want their tattoos in the picture somehow. And so this was a good example of incorporating her sleeve tattoo into the image and how she's dressed and her look and her eyes and stuff. It kind of worked out well, but you can see these images look very different from these. Obviously the mood's different, but it's still a good utilization of the hands. And then here is, a senior. So this is try not to overthink. And so here it is, just, barely, a hand on the chin, lips parted just a little bit. And this is a nice example of more with a senior shoot, what you would do with the hands. Let me see what I have here. Once again, senior here, nothing crazy, just you see where the hands are. And then number 3 is use available light whenever possible. And it's ironic I would say that because traditionally I will use my speed lights. I always bring them with me. I bring at least 2 with me when I'm shooting. And I use light modifiers, and I love using my external lights. But if you have good available light, and there's a good light and there's a bad light, we talk about a quality of light as a photographer. So some light, TJ is good, some is not good. But it's great to use it when it's there. And so I was able to go through some images here and show you some good examples of using available light. A lot of times when you start with portraits, or you start doing portraiture for the first time, maybe your budget is not so much, doesn't call for all these speed lights or mono lights or light modifiers. It can get expensive, and so you can do a lot with just no light at all, maybe just a reflector. And so here is just using your window light. And once again, I'm using the Tamron 8518. As you see now, if you look at the image on the left, I overexposed by about a stop. Not too much. I didn't want to blow out the trees. You see that you can see it's a green. You see that there's a tree there, and it worked. And then on the image on the right, I would underexpose just a little bit. And if you can notice there on the model's face, it's not quite Rembrandt lighting, but it almost is. So on the image on the left, there's a full frontal light, flat lighting basically. It's and which is nice, a nice glamour light. But on the one on the right, we have more, not quite Rembrandt. Rembrandt is when you have darker on one side, except for there should be, in classic Rembrandt, you'd have a triangle underneath the eye. We don't really have that, but we do have a light spot. And it gives a different look. And this isn't really changing aperture. I still shot at the same aperture. I shot 1.8, which is amazing. That one thing I love about most of my Tamron lenses is I can shoot wide open at 1.8 or 2.8, but depending on the lens, and it still gives me a very usable, extremely sharp image. But if you look at the one on the right, all I did was underexpose a little bit, and you get that little moodier of a look. And then use available light to shape the face. As you can see there, a little difference in the shapes based on her pose and then the light. Same model here, still using the 8518, but it's just amazing. Now, what's nice about this, you notice there is a small catch light in the eyes. That's not from a flash. What that is this is a hallway in Cleveland State University, and across from her is the wall of the hallway. And because it was that beige colored, you would see the window light was reflecting off and then giving you a nice fill light. So that's what makes this work a little bit, because you still have the eyes are not that dark. More on that one. Now this is outdoors. Once again, all available light. And this also too will show you a little difference in when you're posing. Both images work. The image on the left was the first image that I shot of this senior, and then on the image on the right, I just had her put her fist on the wall, and I said, just look up. Now, once again, based on the build of your subject, it's not always advisable to have a pose where their nose is up, their face is up. But for this young lady, it looks great. You know, once again, though, the one on the left, her face looks thinner, and the one on the right, it looks a little larger. Plus, I'm closer to her. I was using the 85, and I stepped in. Both very good usable images. And then, you know, I said catch light earlier. Catch light in the eyes is key. That's why I love using, you know, some artificial light, speed lights, and use some like high-speed sync to balance it with the ambient light. But right here, it was not necessary. You know, using the 70 to 200, you see that nice bokeh in the background, that blurred area, which is nice. You want to do that to isolate your subject's face. But both of these images, the left and the right, you have this beautiful catch light. And it's not artificial, and that's basically the sun reflecting off of the sidewalk that was right in front of her. So sometimes you need that light, sometimes you don't. What's nice, too, is you look at the image on the right, you have a nice, like, not a rim light, but you see that little bit of a hair light right there, and that's just the sun. And I just kept moving her face and have her tilting her face until I had that nice, that little bit of sunshine there. And it looks nice. It looks like I had a multiple light setup, when in reality, I didn't even have a reflector. This also, too, was used all available light with 70 to 200. This works out great. And the amazing thing is when you zoom this in, you can actually, how clear this is. And the mom actually of the senior told me this, and I didn't know. And I zoomed this in 100%, and I could see the clouds in her eyes, which was amazing. And it just, you know, to show you how sharp that 70 to 200 G2 is, which is my favorite lens. And here we have, once again, 70 to 200, 2.8 G2 there. One of my favorite senior pictures of all time. Senior portraits. This is shot completely wide open. We know it's wide open because we see that bokeh is so pronounced in the background. And this was the sun. This was almost golden hour, if you're familiar with that term. It's that hour and a half or so before sunset, and the sun's not quite going down, but you can see that there's a warmth to the light. And this is a good quality of light right here. And you can see her, that nice catch light that was just natural. That's the clouds reflecting in her eyes. Nice look there. And if I would have used any type of external flash, you would have seen a shadow, multiple shadows from the soccer net. But because I didn't, you don't see any kind of a shadow, which is nice. And then also, too, remember to look for open shade. And I don't know if everyone knows what open shade is, but you know, there's shade, and there's open shade. Shade is just what you think it is. You go, you're in the shade, and it's all dark. Open shade is when the subject is in the shade, but they are still being lit from the light of the sun, reflecting off of a building, or maybe it's not even reflecting, but because they're so far back into the shaded part, but the sun can still reach their face. Both of these were shot using that technique of open shade. You see there's a nice little catch light in her eyes. And that's not from a flash, that's just from the sun reflecting off of something. And you see the same thing here. It looks like there's a catch light in the one on the right and the left, but there's not. I did not use anything to light these. And these were 85. I don't have this listed, but this was the 70 to 200 on these.
And I love just from this one area how you got so much variety just by using that, you know, zooming in and, you know, using compression to blow out that background, going a little bit wider, you know, so we have those leading lines going in. Compositionally, I mean, we could keep going on for tips for days, but those are a couple other things too that to look for is, you know, you can get a different look by just trying to zoom in or just zoom out a little bit or just move over. You know, we talked about this in the birding and the macro, is just kind of get that different angle. And this is showing exactly that. You know, he was able to get very different shots in a very short period of time just by moving around a little bit. So
exactly. That's an excellent tip. And the thing is, I always, in my senior portrait workshop, I say, you know, it's just like a wedding. A wedding, you have to be very expedient. It's just boom, boom, boom. Well, senior portraits are not exactly that quick, but you still need to make good use of your time. And as you rightly stated, TJ, that's exactly what I would teach is, you know, I shot this one, then zoom in, try to get as many poses as you can without your model, subject, or senior changing their clothes or going to a different area. And here's 2 good usable shots. And like you talked about, the leading lines, blowing out the background, but all good stuff.
Absolutely. And we did have a point come in, and I do love this. Jim coming in clutch again. I carry my iPad with me on shoots, loaded up with plenty of sample of poses, both boys and girls. I find it easier for the senior model to look at what I'm trying to have them do. So I think that is a very good tip.
That's a great tip, Jim. And I still have a couple apps on my phone that, you know, after, you know, 14 or 15 years of doing this, I still, sometimes I just look at these apps and just to get an idea, you know, and sometimes it's easier if you, and you know this, Jim, obviously, because you use this technique, but oftentimes if I'm scratching my head for a pose and I think of one, then I can look and find the image on the app, and then I can show the subject. And sometimes it's easier than me explaining if I can just show them that app and say, you know, here it is. And they go, oh, okay, I see what they're doing. So that's perfect.
And what's funny is like if any of my seniors in the past, especially the girls, one of the things they always laughed about was I actually act out the pose. So I'll, you know, say turn to the right, kick that hip out, pull that hair back.
Oh, I would like to see
I'll
that.
be at the end, I'll be looking like this, and they're just like looking back at me. They bust up laughing, but they actually know because I'm acting out exactly what I want them to do. You know, whether it's bringing it in here, trying all these different poses, you know, that's just me doing it and acting it out. It adds some humor to the actual shoot itself, but also it's easier. You know, if I say put your hand on your face, okay, what I need you to do is I need you to lightly just put your hand in your face. Now, as you do that, you're shifting those hips. We're turning that shoulder in. Okay, perfect. Looking here, looking down, looking up at the camera. So it allows me to kind of coach them through that as well.
Oh, yeah. And I seriously, if you have a video of you doing those poses, I would like to see that.
It's on social media somewhere. I think it's on like a Snapchat or an Instagram story somewhere.
I'm sure it is. All right, that is good. And then we're about finished here. This is that same young lady that earlier. And this we talked about quality of light, or I talked about quality of light, and this is good light. That, like I said, this is golden hour. And unfortunately, we can not always shoot in golden hour because of schedules and the senior schedules or your subject schedules or your schedule for that matter. But these worked out really well because the sun is going down, and it was just really nice to be on the field at that moment. And you see this light is so warm and natural, and it just works really well.
Absolutely.
You see the same thing there. Just a little different looks. And going back to what you said earlier, TJ, about, you know, trying to get multiple poses, and utilizing, you know, where the senior is or the subject is at the moment. And that's basically what I did here. Is the shot that I wanted, the shot I really wanted was that one earlier with that serious look and holding the soccer ball like through the net. But I didn't want to leave. Once I got that shot first, I said, you know, let's do some other things. And so we went through a whole battery of poses. And these are the ones, you know, of all of the ones I shot that I liked. But it didn't take maybe another 15 minutes worth of shooting to get all of these very different looks, sometimes smiling, sometimes not. But, you know, and she loved them all and made a collage. And so that is it. Any questions or?
Yeah, let's see. Do we have any questions out there from anybody? Let's jump into this one, and I might be able to help answer that one as well. Any chance you can talk briefly about tips to overpower the sun?
Wow, yeah. So, So, who asked that?
Jim Summers asked that.
Jim, yeah. Hi, Jim. You know, this is where, you know, utilizing speed lights, a powerful speed light or a monolight, to balance with your ambient light is gonna come in. And this is where, you know, utilizing a feature called high speed sync. If you're not familiar with that, perhaps you are, but the high speed sync sometimes will help as well. Because oftentimes when you're shooting portraits outside, you want to shoot, say you have a 70 to 200 2.8, and you want to shoot at 2.8. Well, if you shoot at 2.8, and if it's a bright sunny day, your shutter speed is just going to be way faster than your camera sync speed. You know, depending if you're, you know, Nikon or a Canon is at 1/200th or 1/60th or whatever it is. That's where a high speed sync comes in just perfectly. You know, also you could, you know, I would slap on a polarizing filter. Also, I would slap on maybe an ND filter of maybe a couple steps. Will help you a little bit. But the main thing is you're just going to need to have a flash that's powerful enough to overpower that sun, especially to fill that face. So a good example is if it's a bright sunny day, which we all know a bright sunny day is not the time to shoot portraits, but sometimes we have to do that. I love an overcast, a cloudy day. But if it's a bright sunny day, you would put your subject with their back towards the sun and their face would be towards you. Well, right away, we know that the face is going to be dark. So what do we do? We need to have some fill light. And that fill flash is going to come in the form of a speed light or a mono light, you know, or whatever you have. And it has to be powerful enough to overpower it. So that's when you play around a little bit, use and sometimes I will use TTL, you know, let the camera kind of do it for me. And then I just do a +2 or +3. Or then sometimes what I'll do is just do it completely in manual if I have the time. But the key is having a good quality speed light that has enough power to overpower that sun.
Absolutely, and I'll jump in there too. So what my way that I do those shots, these are for, you know, bright sunny days, but also for sunsets, is taking kind of a layering approach. So first I'm going to set my metering or my settings to expose the sun. So expose the background. So then I know how much light I have to add in. So then I work to my model next, and I put my light up and I pop in, you know, how much flash do I need? Okay, I just move that up a little bit. Okay, boom, I've layered. I've separated the problem from the actual image itself. So I now have the background done, boom, have the model lit. Okay, now I can go into posing. Good. I'm going to do a final check. I'm going to start at her hair. I'm going to him or her hair. I'm going to work my way down. Okay, let's shoot. And that's kind of the approach that I take. So whether it's high speed sync, high sync, or I'm trying to think of what Pocket Wizard calls theirs. But they have their own version of a high speed sync. Mm-hmm. But that allows me to keep that shutter speed up high enough in order to have that light come in. So.
Yeah. No, cool. That is perfect. That is perfect.
So what other questions? I don't see any more here, so I'm going to jump into a couple other things. So a couple of those images were from Pixel Photo Fest last year. You had mentioned at Cleveland State. That is going on again this year, August 14th through 16th at CSU. We are having our annual conference. We have quite a few speakers already on board. So we have Vanessa Joy coming, Aaron Anderson, Jeff Carpenter, Isaac Coffey, another Ohio boy, Jen and Travis Stitt. So we are going to release the next round of speakers on the live stream. So tune in every day to find out who the speakers are. We have another 5 that are lined up to go live. But we are already starting to put together our preparations for this. And it's going to be at Cleveland State again. Awesome. If you need some additional help, we are doing virtual one-on-one classes. So whether it's with Caitlin, myself, whoever is the best person for the job and that has knowledge in the area that you want to focus on, we will get you connected. So if you want to learn a little bit more about portraiture, you know, the settings on your camera, any of those things, you can use that link to set up a virtual one-on-one. Also, what's going on the rest of the week? So tomorrow we have Ruben for Westcott. Sorry, I misspoke yesterday. I had him out of order. Friday is my news show that I talked about yesterday, basically where I go over the industry trends and share some tutorials and things, places where I've found inspiration. Monday, Brian Manier is going to join us. Brian is from the Michigan area. He is a Fuji X ambassador. We're going to have a little fireside chat. And on Tuesday, William Innes from Panasonic. He's sponsored by a lot of different companies. He's on the conference circuit. We're bringing him to you into your living room or your home office, wherever you might be. And then Wednesday, Jeff Carpenter. So you saw Jeff was on the billing there on that page before. He is a lighting wizard. If you go on Instagram, type in Ready Light Media, you will find Jeff Carpenter. He does the most, he puts the time in to do the behind the scenes, so you can see exactly how he lights stuff. He does live streams all the time. He's just a really good, really close friend of mine, but a great, great asset to the industry. And then practice makes perfect, guys. So, you know, if you do have family that is stuck in the house with you, there's no better way to torment them than to take their photos, I promise you. Take some portraits, have them kind of work on these posing, some of these things that we talked about. We are available if you need anything. So on Instagram at the.pixel.connection, Facebook, just search for the Pixel Connection. And if you have absolutely any questions, please feel free to reach out. That about wraps it up. I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, Bob, for sharing these 3 portrait tips. And these are all actionable things that you guys can go and you can try out today. Just get your family and you can try them out. If you have absolutely any questions, please let us know. We're going to get off of here for now, but if you need anything, we'll talk soon. Cheers.
Take care.